just thankful you guys are here tonight. And just if you don't know what the Taylor Rotary Business Alliance is, this is an idea, an organization, a gathering that we came up with about a year and a half ago of a chance to connect businesses with other businesses, but also get businesses connected with the community. And it's been tremendous and been awesome since we've started it. You guys, a lot of you have been here before. We've had some great speakers, but the Taylor Business Alliance is growing and growing, and we're excited about it. And I know a lot of people I talked to today, taxis and stuff like that. We had a few people that just couldn't make it today, but we are excited because we have some great speakers. You guys are going to hear about a hidden gem that we have here in Taylor as well. But first off, I want to thank Prestige for being one of our sponsors tonight, and for the food and the appetizers. And this is kind of awkward. I'm also one of the sponsors at Primerica Financial Services, but we were one of the sponsors. But again, big round of applause for our sponsors, especially Prestige for the food tonight. But also I want to introduce our Mayor Tim Woolley. I want him to come up and just talk a couple seconds, introduce some of the city officials that are here, and then we will get started with our program. And tonight, I promise we're going to have a lot more networking time for you to get a chance to meet a lot of people and some new faces in the crowd. So I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Woolley, and then we're going to get started here in a couple seconds. So, Mayor Tim Woolley.
Again, I just want to thank, thanks Keith, I just want to thank everybody for coming tonight. I always enjoy coming to these things. I get to meet new people, it seems like every time. It's starting to get nicer, more things are starting to go on. The one thing I will say is it seems like probably over the last month, Taylor is really starting to get a lot of interest from all over the world, I will say. We're getting a lot of phone calls, so I'm pretty happy about that. So hopefully in the near future, we'll be discussing more and more new businesses that are opening up in the city of Taylor. So again, I want to thank everybody for coming tonight. I'm not sure who's all here tonight, so if I don't recognize anybody, I apologize. But again, I hope everybody has a great night tonight. So thanks.
All right, so as you saw during some of the slides too, this is Taylor Rotary really helped launch this, and you guys saw some of the things that Rotary is doing this year. A couple events, just I want to give a couple quick plugs, because this is, like I said, this is whole design is to get business involved in the community. And one of our upcoming events is our Touch a Truck event that we host at Beacon Baptist, where it's exactly what it sounds like. Kids get to come out and touch a truck, whether it's a fire truck, a police car, a wrecker, a tow truck, whatever, and we had a great success. So that is coming up here in June. I think it's June 16th, right, Mr. Larry? 17th. June 17th, okay, Father's Day weekend. So that is the first thing on our radar, and as you guys have seen, we have law enforcement appreciation. I'm sorry, back it up. We have the Wounded America ride for veterans, and then we also have our law enforcement appreciation softball game. And then, of course, we have our golf outing here for Rotary. Those are some of our big things. But if you're interested in just getting involved in that and learning more about it, just let me or Larry know. But tonight, you guys are going to get to hear, maybe some of you didn't even know that this existed, but we have something very wonderful and beautiful right here in the city of Taylor, and it's our Taylor Conservatory. How many people are familiar with the Taylor Conservatory? Good share of hands. How many people know that in the summer on Wednesday nights, they have an awesome concert series? And it is amazing, and it's a hidden gem, and I love it because it's just right down the street from my house. But you get to hear from the person that puts all that on behind the scenes and is the master of the conservatory and the music in the parks. And hey, I'm putting a lot of pressure on her tonight, but guys, you get to hear from Erin Dobbins tonight, who has put that all together and put the Taylor Conservatory on the map, and it's a wonderful thing. So, ladies and gentlemen, Miss Erin Dobbins.
Thank you, Keith, I think. Well, if I seem anxious and nervous, it probably is because I don't generally speak in public. So I do appreciate this opportunity, though. We do have a great spot in the city, the Taylor Conservatory. It's near and dear to my heart, but I'm not the one that put it on the map. We would give that to Larry Wright and about 150 other volunteers who've worked at the conservatory over the last about 16 years now. So Music and Art in the Gardens is our main summer concert series. It's our main fundraiser, and it is a concert series. On the slideshow here, I just kind of put together a bunch of random photos, so as I'm talking, you can see what our space looks like and what it has to offer. So I think most of the people in this room are either city officials or business owners, elected officials. There's something for everybody at the conservatory. So we are a 501c3 nonprofit organization. We do not receive any funding from taxpayer dollars. Everything we do through generosity of people like you, business owners, through our fundraising, through our event sales. You can see up here that we do have weddings. We have a really nice pavilion, so you can either rent the pavilion separately or you can rent our entire 8-acre space. We host ceremonies and receptions. Last year, DMB Landscape out of Livonia celebrated their 50th anniversary. It was a fantastic celebration. They were able to invite all of their staff, families, and other people that they did business with over the years. So they brought in tents, food trucks, I think some side entertainment. It's just a really nice space for you to know as business people, and any organization is welcome to rent the facility, and we do have some special pricing for nonprofit organizations and causes. So please reach out to me directly. I do have this was from our From the Heart Gala. That was in February that we just hosted, and that's one of our main fundraisers that we do in the wintertime. So it does have our musical lineup this year. We kick off Music and Art in the Gardens on June 7th. All of our shows are on Wednesday nights from 5:30 to 8:30. So the music plays from 6:30 to 8:30, but if you come at 5:30, then you pay $5 at the door, bring your own lawn chair, but we have a full bar, several food trucks, ice cream, usually Love's custard pies are there, and then we also have a fine art display. So it's really family friendly, open to everybody, people of all ages, and a lot of people come straight from work. Some people don't show up till 7:30, 8 o'clock, even knowing there's only a half hour of the show left. But so in addition to the Music and Art in the Gardens and sponsorship opportunities, which are all on our website, Huron Valley Steel and Fritz Enterprises, they're our main title sponsor. Wayne County Community College District is our presenting sponsor this year. And then each of the 8 shows, we have a day sponsor. So we invite businesses and organizations to support us through that. I think we have 2 days this season with sponsorship opportunities available. But throughout the summer, the way that we really make our money is by people showing up to the event. So our space houses about 300 to 500 people each week. When we have car shows, we have upwards of 5. I think our highest we ever had was 550. Shaggy is a local car guy, and he makes the trophies. So just by encouraging friends, family, putting the word out that the conservatory is hosting this event on Wednesday nights really helps us out. So another way you can help us is through in-kind donations. If you have services that we use, this year we have to reseal our main terrace, repaint the pavilion, we need some electrical work done, and then just our general basics that need to be done through the garden throughout the year. So we take volunteer groups and individuals throughout the week. Tanya, I think, is a new volunteer who's coming to work with us, but specifically the car shows this year, each night we need, for the music, someone to help us park the cars. So we're looking for church groups, maybe your business requires volunteer hours for your staff members and want to come out. We need like 8 to 10 people per evening on the Wednesday nights to help us park the cars. It can get pretty chaotic there. We have a grass lot. We don't have any marked spots, and just takes one random car to gum up the works for everybody. So we really appreciate your help there. And does anyone have any questions?
How much to be a sponsor of the music series, one of the day sponsors?
One of the day sponsors, it's $1,000, but several businesses have opted to work together, and they don't know they're working together. We just tell them it's $500 if they can't do the $1,000. So we have 2 $500 sponsors in one evening. So this season we have about half are $1,000 and half are 2 at $500. What do you get for that? Well, you get the satisfaction of helping the Taylor Conservatory first and foremost. But each sponsorship comes with a number of concert tickets that you can pass out to your friends or family or use them yourself. We have preferred seating. We set up a nice canopy. We ask all of the visitors to bring their own lawn chair for the general public. But if you are a sponsor, you have preferred seating with white padded chairs that we set up under the canopy. And we also advertise you throughout the show. We have nice sponsored banners that we display at your tent and at our front and back gates, and then also on our social media and website. Thank you, Larry. Is there anything else I forgot? Yeah, okay. Does anyone else have any questions? Yes, James.
What do you do when it rains?
What do we do when it rains? We rely on our trusty pals at the City of Taylor, and they let us use, for a very, very nominal fee, the Sheridan Pavilion, which is right around the corner. And I want to knock on wood that every year there's 1 week during the Junior League World Series that pavilion is unavailable to us. We've never had a rain day on that Wednesday before JLWS, so I'm praying again. We already start now. And we know that weather is cyclical, so on Wednesday, if it's not raining now, chances are it won't be raining throughout the summer. Last year, I think we were in the pavilion just as much as we were in the gardens. So, yep, you're welcome.
When do you start your painting of the pavilion?
As soon as we get the money and the people to do it. And we need a professionally licensed and insured company, and that is not something that we can do on a volunteer basis. Yeah, the volunteerism on that comes from a company who will allow their staff to come and do that at no cost to us is what we're hoping, and we did over the last 2 years have tremendous growth with a lot of support from the Landscape Association that did work for us in that capacity, but around the grounds.
So what the old guys did not allow going to town, ladder and paint?
Well, we have an open air artist forum that's coming up, so if you want to get on a ladder and paint, it'll just be on canvas, and you're welcome to do that. Okay, is this my time? All right, thanks everybody. Don't forget to grab one of these on the way out.
All right, so as we're transitioning, I do have a public service announcement that just hit me. How many people are aware of on a week from tonight is our first ever Celebrate Taylor event at the Taylor High School? So we only got a few hands. So Griff Mills, our superintendent here at Taylor Schools, has brought an idea that he used to do at Tecumseh schools, and we found out a couple other schools in Michigan do this. They celebrate that the city that they are in. So Thursday night from 5 to 8 p.m. at the Taylor High School is Celebrate Taylor. And there's going to be 100 businesses there that are going to be representing themselves, and the students are going to be putting on shows, and there's going to be other organizations there. And this is just a chance for the school to say thank you, and for us to even get to know the people in the school, and the school to get to know businesses. So if you're not doing anything, this is open to everybody. If you're not doing anything from 5 to 8 p.m. on Thursday night, go to Taylor High School and go walk around and meet and greet the local businesses, the students, and the school staff. It's going to be a wonderful event, and we know this is going to even get bigger and bigger each year. So, and if you're still interested, I don't know if there's still time. Talk to me if you're an interested business that you want to be in on that and set up a vendor booth. You are more than welcome to as well, and I'll get you the information to get with Griff and get that done. So I'm going to give a 60-second plug to our Taylor Education Foundation president, Mr. Armando. He's going to come up and talk to you about something they have happening real quick, and then we're going to turn the show over to Mr. DeSena.
Thank you, Keith. I've got 60 seconds, so I'm going to make this quick. We've got an event, I passed flyers out. We have an event on May 13th. It's a unique one we've never done before. It's got 3 events actually happening on the same day. We've got a cornhole contest going, cornhole competition. We've got great Tiger tickets for July 8th. It's actually in the suite. You get food and parking. So it's a $300 value for the winner of the cornhole contest. The other thing we have going, we have a dunk tank going. And we actually have 3 volunteers for the dunk tank so far. Deputy Chief Mike Levedini actually is going to be on a chair in a dunk tank. And we've got 2 high school students, actually it's the king and queen of the court this year that volunteered to be on a dunk tank. Have that going during the course of the day. And then the last thing we have that's really interesting is actually a rage event. For those of you who've heard about rage rooms, we've got an old car that's going to be beat up by people that are willing to pay a few bucks to beat up an old car. We got an idea from the teachers at the school. The teachers would love to beat up a copy machine. So we got a handful of we got 2 or 3 copy machines that are going to be beat up by teachers. And they got for a few bucks donation, you could beat up a copy machine. We have the high school jazz band is going to be playing, entertaining. And we also have the drum corps playing during the course of the day. We have a little concession stand. It all happens on May 13th. It's actually going to be on the high school property. So please do join us. If anybody wants to volunteer for the dunk tank, please let me know. We'd be glad to have you dunked in water. Thank you.
So just so you know what the Taylor Education Foundation does is they provide scholarships for students to further their education and also support our teachers as well. So the Taylor Education Foundation is a outside branch outside the school that helps with scholarships and helps the teachers offset some costs. So it's just a great cause to help our future and help our next generation. So without any further ado, our keynote speaker tonight, our actual state representative for this area of Taylor, newly elected state representative, and he's going to talk to you guys. And I think I'm honored that he's here to speak to our alliance and speak to you guys in the city of Taylor. I know you may have a lot of questions, and he's going to be taking questions. But you know, getting the time for somebody as busy as him to come and speak to us, I think says a lot about his character, that he's making time to come speak to us. And we are honored and humbled that you are here supporting the Taylor Business Alliance and here just to talk to everybody in the city of Taylor. Our state representative, Mr. James DeSantis.
Thank you, Keith. Thanks for having me tonight. It's good to be here. Good question on Aaron, on what do you do when it rains, because I've been there when it rains, and I can tell you they run like hell. I saw the tent fly over my head, and I saw the poor ladies doing the farm market running for their lives and trying to hold tents down. It was pretty interesting. I had dogs and sheep there, so I wasn't too worried about them blowing away. All right, well, let me tell you, it's been interesting in Lansing. Let me just kind of go through a little bit of a chronology from January 1st to now. Of course, you probably follow the news. We passed a lot of hot button issues, and I'm in the minority, by the way, so we're 56-54 in the state house. So on the Democratic side, if they're missing one vote, one member, they can't pass anything. So we've had a lot of days off. I don't like to let that word out. But we, as far as I'd like to just focus on some of the bills that I've presented. Remember, I'm in the minority, so some of these bills are not going to go very far. One of the bills I've introduced, and that's in committee, is a 21-foot protection zone around a police patrol vehicle. You know how you have to stay 500 feet back from a fire truck? You have to change lanes when an officer has pulled somebody over on the road shoulder. This is basically to afford the police officer a little bit of protection and a little bit of a zone to do his job without somebody filming and into his car and filming him. And so that's out there. We'll see where that goes. 21 feet is the typical reaction time that a person needs to assess a threat, whether somebody's friendly or not. And it's only enforced if the police officer wants it enforced. He can invite somebody in to talk to him, but as soon as it gets hot, he can ask somebody to step 21 feet away from his vehicle, and they have to stay there until he's ready to talk to them. I have a cottage food bill that I have introduced, and that basically, for those that are not familiar with it, if you have a business at your home where you're producing pasta, cakes, cookies, anything that you would agriculturally make at home, including I think you could probably sell produce, you get up to $55,000 that you could sell out of your home to the general public. I didn't really even understand this until I became a legislator, that you were restricted in that way, and I'm sure there's a lot of the black markets out there, I'm sure. but, it's restricted right now to $25,000, so we wanna lift that, double that, especially in light of how expensive everything is and how expensive food is. I have introduced a chicken bill so that people who want to keep chickens, I know the mayor probably is real interested in this one. If people want to keep chickens, as long as they don't keep a rooster, they can keep 5 chickens on a quarter of an acre and 10 chickens on a half of an acre and on up from there, so. This will probably just legalize and validate what's going on right now in a lot of places. So when we get to some of the other issues you probably have seen in the news. So right off the bat, we passed a gigantic bill. I was in favor of the EITC, I was in favor of the pension tax reform. Unfortunately, I got a chance to vote on the EITC as it came through, but then it came back as part of a larger bill. The pension tax, when it first came through, was very odd and irregular. It only got about 18 to 20% of those with pensions. Then it came back, it hit about 60 to 70% of people with pensions, not with 401ks, but then they adjusted that as well. But unfortunately, it came back through with a large amount of money for a battery plant in Marshall, Michigan, which I was not in favor of, and I'll tell you some more about that later. So that passed. So pension tax has passed. The EITC has passed and been signed. So you'll see some effects. It didn't take immediate effect, so some of you will not see differences until 2024 and 2025. One thing I should mention before I get too far, we have a $9 billion surplus, so the state is flush with a lot of money. And so in trying to figure out how we are going to spend that money, and I'm pretty sure we're going to spend all of it, trying to see what makes the most sense. I have introduced another bill. As you know, being in the city, there's been a lot of money taken from the city's way in revenue sharing. They've cut revenue sharing quite a bit over the last 10 years. So I introduced a bill to give $800 million back in revenue sharing and earmark it for roads and bridges, local roads and bridges. So your counties, your cities would get, based on the road formula, and I know $800 million doesn't sound like a lot, but especially when you spread it out over an entire state, but it's based on your population, based on how many roads you have. So the areas like Wayne County would have gotten a lot more than areas that have lesser population, but they also are based on their miles of roads too. So that's in committee. I'm afraid we're going to spend all the money before my bill gets out of committee, but I did want to say, I want to give money back for the roads. I'm sure many of you drive Eureka Road. They fixed part of it, but it's still bad. I mean, it's really bad. And right as you come out of our airport, you get on a road that bad, and that's a county road. And I'm trying to give money back to the locals to fix issues like that. Because I think when you have $9 billion, you would think that you would fix the roads. So, many of you too have followed the income tax change. So, there was a bill back about 6-7 years ago that passed that when income or revenue hit a certain amount and a formula adjusted to inflation, our income tax would reduce. It would be an automatic reduction. So your income tax is going to automatically reduce from 4.25 to 4.05. However, it's supposed to be a permanent decrease in your income tax. The Attorney General has issued an opinion that it is only a 1-year decrease. So that may not mean anything. It's an Attorney General's opinion. No one has filed suit yet, but businesses are getting ready to file suit. It's supposed to be a permanent decrease. And then again, if in 2024 we have revenue exceeding a certain amount, the formula kicks in and the income tax will go from 4.05 to 3.85. So that's out there. You'll read a little bit about it. You'll hear a little bit about it. For sure, you're going to get a temporary income tax cut, and we'll see what the Michigan Supreme Court says. The law is pretty clear. It's a permanent cut, and the legislature can change that, obviously, but the law is supposed to cut it those 2.2 percentage points, and then again, cut it again if the formula kicks in. We'll see what happens there. I just stay tuned on that. Prevailing wage. This is going to be a tough one for a lot of people. If you're contracting with the schools, if you're contracting with cities, any governmental agency, the state has passed a prevailing wage law that will be difficult. When I say difficult, the law was written that if you had a tax break, tax incentive, we're getting any government funds, even COVID funds, COVID relief funds, you were going to pay prevailing wage even if you were working on a private project like a restaurant, building a parking lot. You would have had to have paid prevailing wage. But this is going to make it pretty expensive for the schools. If you are building a school, it probably just went up 25%, your building costs based on your labor costs. Not to say that there aren't a lot of companies out there already trying to be in the market and pay a prevailing wage. We know how the upward pressure on wages right now is tremendous. So that's out there. And it also affects our road building. So when we go to rebuild 2 miles of road, not to mention the concrete costs, the prevailing wage is going to increase that cost of rebuilding that road or fixing that road quite significantly. So things are going to be more expensive. Fancy that. The effect on schools, the effect on government projects, things are going to be more costly to do projects, and we just have to make sure that everybody knows that. I think some people feel, okay, that's good, we're paying good wages, but things are going to be much more expensive on a project basis. All right, so getting back to what I talked about with the initial bill we passed, we have, and many of you have followed this, with the $9 billion that we have in surplus, we have passed 2 bills. One preceded this term, but they're still approving all of the funding for it. We have 2 Chinese battery plants, one in Big Rapids and one in Marshall, Michigan, both of which I oppose. The one in Big Rapids is about the one in Marshall is about a $1.8 billion taxpayer gift to Cattle and to Ford and Cattle together to make lithium batteries for electric cars. And the difficulty with a lot of these, with the Marshall plant, there's 300 Chinese nationals that come with the plant who take an allegiance to the CCP, to the Chinese Communist Party. And Big Rapids, same story, same thing. Lesser money in Big Rapids. Big Rapids is short of $1 billion in money that they've given to this. That project, by the way, is still jumping through some hoops locally to get approved, and we don't have any guarantees as to jobs, how many jobs they're going to guarantee us, and really honestly, we're other than the, and by the way, we've given away quite a bit of a tax break on both of these projects, but we don't have a guarantee. Nothing is guaranteed on either of these projects as to what the state of Michigan gets back. So if you look at the math on it, the Marshall plant is about $700,000 a job each taxpayer is paying to get that plant here. So, and I want to open this up for questions, and I wanted to hit these points so you know kind of where I'm coming from. We're spending taxpayer dollars for and what I would consider priorities that are different than what my priorities would be, which would be infrastructure improvements, really taking some of that surplus and fixing our roads, which is to me the #1 issue. Roads and bridges, maybe some sewer we could also do some sewer improvements, some water line improvements, and earmark them for infrastructure improvements. You may have seen on the news, I feel like I've just been protesting a lot. There's a injection well in Romulus, Michigan, right over here. It's actually right on the border of Taylor, and we were taking some waste from the train derailment in Ohio, and the dioxin was coming here, and we protested at the site. They injected 300,000 gallons into this, into these 2 wells, and it seems like Michigan takes about 70% of their waste from out of state, and it's because our tipping fees are so low. The city of Romulus gets absolutely nothing out of that well. There's no tipping fee. There's really no economic value. So we just said we didn't want this waste coming from Ohio. We were worried that it would spill, potentially, and we would have an environmental disaster here if it spilled. And people were like, well, that's kind of a far-fetched, chancy thing, don't you think? It's probably not likely. And then like 2 weeks later, one of the trucks coming from East Palestine, Ohio, got hit, spilled. It wasn't liquid, it spilled dirt all over so they had to clean up in Ohio. Thank God it wasn't in Michigan. And then my hometown, Wyandotte, had a 5G tower put up on an elementary school. And it happened to be the school that I went to kindergarten at, Washington Elementary, so they reached out to me because no one else would stand up. None of the other reps would say anything about it. And so I have a bill restricting 5G cell towers on schools and I also have a second bill restricting 5G towers on fire stations. Because the firemen, after they saw I was restricting them on schools, said, hey, what about us? We're under that tower 40 hours a week. And so just to give you a little bit of background on cell towers, there's a lot of peer-reviewed information out there about the dangerous effects of non-ionizing radiation. And without going into all the great details, there's blood marker studies and oxidative stress studies that do show that if you're within 1,500 feet of a cell tower continuously, it does affect you health-wise. You make ATP in your cells, your protons and electrons, it interrupts that process, and then you get oxidative stress, which is a marker for cancer. So we're trying to protect children because they say that young developing brains are especially vulnerable to this. So if we can get the cell towers 1,500 foot away from schools, that's better. It's good to have them not right over your house, obviously, but children in schools, pregnant women should not be continuously within 1,500 feet. They didn't measure continuous exposure. They just measured what somebody would get on a one-time basis, 40 hours a week, or if you're in a school, a little short of 30 hours a week. And then I've also passed a bill, or I've introduced a bill that would ban Class 1 commercial injection wells in the state of Michigan. And 17 states have banned commercial injection wells, so I want us to be the 18th state. And then maybe we can really address the idea of where we need to take these chemicals when we have hazardous chemicals. How do we get rid of them? I don't think injecting them down into the ground is a good idea, even though some will tell you it's safe and that it'll be 100 years before we have to deal with it. I'm hoping I'll have some grandchildren still around here in 100 years. But so those are the two things I protested around downriver. I'm going to open it up to questions at this point. I think I've covered just about all the hot button issues that have happened. I may have forgotten one, and I'll think of it as your questions come in.
Right to work, does that involve the school or, state employees or no? Would you settle that or no?
No, I don't think it will. We've repealed it. The state legislature has repealed right to work, so it is now, it's mandatory that you join the union now.
You can join it unless you're state or?
You have to join it if you're a state employee, I believe, right?
You do?
Yeah. I'll give you an example. I have if you're a teacher, if you're a school teacher, if you're a school employee or state employee, you must join the union.
Really?
Yes. If you're an auto worker, if you're a UAW worker, a steel worker, a Teamster, you must join the union now. It's something you have to do. And I had the steel workers in my office, and I was a member of the Teamsters, and I was a member of the laborers. And I'd like to see more steel workers back in America, by the way. I'm an America First guy, so I'd like to see us manufacturing and making more things, and I'd like to see us have manufacturing plants back here. But I told him, I said, if I was working in a steel plant, and I would join the United Steelworkers. I think that they do good things for their people. I philosophically believe that I would be with my coworkers, I would join. But I think that should be a choice. I think that should be somebody's free choice. I have cattle and I have sheep. I'm a member of the Michigan Cattlemen's Association, and I'm a member of the Michigan Sheep Breeders Association. Now, they don't have a large lobby group on their behalf, but I felt the value of joining the association with my fellow sheep breeders and my fellow cattle breeders. And I said, there's benefits to being in this association. We learn a lot of things, we get together, we have common interests, so I think workers have common interests, so I'm not gonna say there's not good reasons. I just felt like it should always be somebody's free choice. They should be able to freely choose if they want to or not. And I believe that even under where we were the last 6 years, I think most people, the percentages were still pretty good of people who were still joining. Thank you for that question, by the way. Yes, sir.
I wanted to talk about prevailing wage a moment. I've been in business 47 years, a landscape contractor. We deal mostly in residential, some commercial, and so on. And over those 47 years, there's probably been 5 occasions where I've had to do the prevailing wage, and it usually has to do with a federal project. If you're out at the airport, federal funds, okay, Davis-Bacon, thank you. So, it didn't seem to affect us very much, and even the prevailing wage, initially, the way you discussed it, except for one thing, when you said, if you receive any federal grants, funding, and then I said, what about COVID? Because many businesses received COVID support help when we couldn't go back to work right away. And you said, you would have to now pay prevailing wage, if that's what's going on.
Let me qualify that.
Yeah.
The original bill, the way it was written, if you were going to be working on a private project, but you received any government grant, funding, gift, tax incentive, tax break too, you were going to have to pay prevailing wage. Or there was also another measure in there which was especially troublesome on lawsuits. Somebody could go and haul you into court and say, Larry Wright is working over here and we don't think he's complying. They can haul you into court and say, you would have to prove, you'd have to lay out your books and your wages and your payrolls to show that you were paying that. But no, right now is the way the law works now. It's all state of Michigan projects, school projects, and if you have a governmental project, if you have a municipal project, county, municipal, city, county, state, schools, courthouses. Who did I miss? Anybody else? Conservatories. I'm not going to say anything about your painting job. Sorry.
So, but not for private.
Right. But that was originally in the bill and we fought to get that out. So because otherwise we're all going to go broke. We're not going to be able to afford to build anything here. As you know, demographically in Michigan, our net in-migration right now is very flat, almost zero. So I sat in a committee hearing for the 21 private universities, independent universities they call them, and it's pretty dire for them. They're down 15% in enrollment, and they weren't exactly doing well financially before this time period. COVID hurt them obviously a lot. And a lot of them feel like the next 5 to 7 years are going to be extremely challenging because demographically, at birth rates of roughly 105,000 kids a year, we're all going to see this. We're going to see drastically less kids in school, drastically less kids in college. It's going to take about 15 to 20 years unless something changes. I'm there hoping we can be like Florida and get more people moving to Michigan, but we've got to have a good business climate. we have to have a good business climate in Michigan. We have to be able to be attractive for businesses to come in and for people to move in, to want to move here. So the next 2 to 4 years are gonna be very challenging, and I'm glad to be here because I know if you're in business, you're always looking for, how do I find my niche? How do I navigate these waters to attract to be good in my market and attract customers? If I were in the school business right now, I would be extremely concerned how I'm gonna attract my customers. And that demographic is not going to change quickly because over the last 5 years, if you look at the birth rates over the last 5 years, that's what we're gonna have in kindergarten through 6th grade over the next 5 to 6 years. Those are the numbers we're gonna have unless we have a massive amount of people move into Michigan. So you're going to see again probably school districts that are struggling because they don't have enough, they don't have their money is based on their per pupil grant. They're not going to have as many pupils. So again, I'm there with an optimistic viewpoint. I still think Michigan is a great place to live. It's a beautiful state. It's got great people, and I just think we just need a little kickstart here coming up, and we can say, hey, Michigan's open for business. Come back. You can come here and make a great living. Obviously, there is the challenges I hear as people come into my office are, and it's everybody: hospitals, dentists. I've probably been visited by 20 organizations, and everything they say is, we can't find anybody, we can't find people. And it's very challenging, and they talk about wages, and they're like at the Meals on Wheels, and a senior who came in to see me, they're like, we can't find drivers for Meals on Wheels, and we pay them. And I said, I'll come drive for a day or two, and they said, we would love that, but we are having real challenges getting workers. A community health organization that operates in northern Monroe County, they give dental care and medical care. They can't get dentists and nurses. And obviously they're at the entry level for a lot of these doctors and nurses coming out of school, but they cannot get a dentist to come and it's Medicare reimbursement rates, which is a little bit of a challenge there too, because most dentists and doctors' practices don't want Medicaid patients. So that's the challenge. Our challenge is how to make Michigan attractive. How do we get more people moving to Michigan? How do we become a growing state versus a declining state? So we're pretty flat right now, and the time will tell. We all know that it's pretty challenging here for the next couple of years. Good news is we have a lot of money at the state level. I know that's not always the case at the local level. Everybody says we could use more money, we could use more help. We've got projects we need to do, and I as a state legislator would like to help the locals, because I believe that your best government is your local government. We centralize everything in this country. The federal government's too centralized, the state government is too centralized. I think your county and your city do a much better job of helping meet the needs of their residents. So I would rather say, hey, school district, we got your money, we're gonna give it to you. You decide how best to use it. Cities, counties, you decide how best to use it. We just wanna operate state government efficiently. And there's a lot of things we do that we don't do very efficiently, I'll tell you that. Merritt.
You just kind of touched on it, so mine's more of a request. First of all, thanks for coming to the city of Taylor. We really appreciate you having me here tonight. But you just kind of touched on it. My request is, if you guys are going to get back to the communities, which I would greatly appreciate that, you give us road money, we'll spend it. But my request is, and I know I've spoken to city managers and other mayors, that you give it to the communities themselves. So we don't have to stand in line and put in for projects. If you're going to give money to the county, give money to the county, and then give it to the cities within that county as well, based on however you want to do it, whether it be population, area, size, roads, like you said, because then we get to determine what projects are being done, as opposed to asking somebody else for money and proposing a project, and then they decide whether or not.
And then us approving it, whether we think it's worthwhile,
Yeah,
right?
so, that would be my request, that you go as far as giving it to the communities, not just the county to distribute, give
my perspective, that's the way it should work, honestly. It really should work that way. We don't know. The state does not know your true needs. You know your true needs. And we always rely on the fact that since local government operates a lot more efficiently than state and federal government, you're probably not going to waste your money. You're going to use it pretty wisely.
You brought up the roads. Are we looking at Act 51 from 51 and hoping to change it so we get a better share in the local communities than current range communities are having to deal with? Because right now it's a mile road, so this is a 4-lane road, but they only get it really for 1 mile.
Per lane mile, right?
Lane mile, so things like that have to change. We're up in northern Michigan, it's 2-lane highway, and they can use it better, but we can use it more, so are we going to be changing Act 51?
Well, I had a couple of things I wanted to propose. One is, it's about $625 million in sales tax that is collected at the pump that is not going to road funding. And I wanted to take that $625 million. I know it doesn't sound like a lot of money, but if it's collected at the pump, it should go to the road. And I felt like philosophically, we shouldn't be putting gas taxes, or gas sales taxes into our general fund. And a couple people criticized that, said that's gonna blow a hole in our school aid funding, but we spend $80 billion in the state of Michigan, and we have $9 billion extra. So for the next couple of years, I think we can figure that out. Whether that's gonna happen, I'm not sure. There's a 5% increase proposed for state highways and bridges, what the state spends to rebuild your highways, and you see there's a lot of projects going on right now that even started before now. But they're only proposing a 5% increase. I don't think it's enough. But all of our state departments are getting 5% increases across the board. And this is where the challenging part comes, and I'm sure probably all of you follow this, is if we're gonna prioritize, what do we prioritize? And if we get to 1 or 2 years down the road, where are the challenges going to be? Who is not going to get money that was getting, or who's gonna get just inflation increases and not overinflation increases? And I would argue that roads are gonna need a much larger percentage of increase than what we're currently budgeting for. Same with general infrastructure improvement grants and things like that, help with maybe what we do for special grants for local municipalities that have projects going on. And I'm all for what we can do in the local communities. I think that there's enough money to do that right at this point in time. That's a tough question. I don't know that we're gonna get that done this year unless, and it's not a partisan issue. Honestly, roads to me are not a partisan issue. It's not political. Yes, sir, Armando.
Yes, could you go over the gun legislation issues that just passed the legislation?
So we've got, we just passed red flag. Week before that, we passed what they call safe storage. And a week before, that same week, we passed universal gun registration for long guns, all of which I opposed. We have a civil commitment law in this state, and it might not even need to be tweaked, but that civil commitment law says that if your brother, son, daughter, wife, if you have a genuine provable concern, you can go to a judge and say, listen, my son is struggling and his medication is off, or he's been to the emergency room. It's tragically sad what's going on with a lot of people in our society. But you can go to the judge and say, he's gonna harm himself or harm others. And you can have a person committed. We already can do that. When it comes to guns and due process, it gets really tricky when people who don't like each other, family members who don't like each other, ex-spouses who don't like each other, reporting and saying, he's got guns and I don't, their motivations might be really bad. The safe storage, I will say, I don't think the government should tell you how to store your gun. I do believe that every person is, well, every gun owner, legal gun owner, is pretty responsible with their guns. I'm a gun owner. I know I'm responsible with the way I store my guns. And then the universal registration, we only have it on handguns. I don't think you should have to register every shotgun and every deer hunting rifle and every long gun that you have, every 22 that you have. Did that answer your
Yeah,
question?
but doesn't it include the automatic rifle?
That's not up, we have not taken that up yet. Yeah, that's not been brought up. There's more coming, trust me, there's more on our way. But when it comes to this, I'll give you an example. There's a young man here locally that called me and he wanted to do an interview with me for his political science class, and he was a Michigan State student. And I said, oh, hey, before we start the interview, where were you on the night of the shooting? And he goes, I was in my apartment. And I said, how far away were you? And he says, my roommates and I were about a half mile away from that part of the campus. And I said, did your parents all call you? And they go, oh yeah, every mom called us and said, where are you? And I said, were you worried? Were you concerned? He goes, well, he said, one of our roommates is a hunter. And popped a couple of shells in the shotgun and said, we said to our parents, we're like, we got a shotgun. We don't think we're in any trouble. We don't think he's coming here, but if he does, we're going to defend ourselves. And I thought, you know, the problem, and we have a school safety bill, and I believe that school safety bill, right now you can hire a resource officer, an armed resource officer. That's current law, but our bill is going to go a little further, provide some training, and maybe some significant additional funding to help you not only have a resource officer, but train them so that if you had a situation in your school, you'd have a couple of people, maybe you could have as many as 10 in your school armed. I just really believe that we've got to protect our schools, elementary and high schools. We've got to protect our colleges. And if it were up to me, I would have armed guards at the schools. I would have armed guards at colleges. We do it everywhere else. I mean, any place that we need security, the person is there with the firearm. So I know that's a tough situation because everybody's concerned about this. Everybody, I'm concerned about it. Anyway, I'll leave it at that. We got much more gun legislation coming. Trust me. Yes.
You talked about prevailing wages and affecting the schools. We have a brand new school that's going to be built in Taylor, so already the cost of everything is up. So that's going to be on top of that.
It's possible, though, that school was going to be constructed entirely at prevailing wage. I should say that, to be fair. But there are many projects at schools, including not just construction projects, but contracts with schools that would be subject to that. I don't believe would. It all depends on how your city or how your school district operates. So some were already, some won't. It's going to generally push wages up. Wages are going to go up some more. It's going to be challenging. I'm not against people making good money, and you know there's a lot of jobs out there where people can get $22, $25 an hour right now for we'll train you on the job to work. That's the reality where we have right now. So.
I think also with the schools, what is your beliefs or background, or what is it that you would like to see with our school education system in this?
So we've got a lot of failures right now, and a lot of it has to do back to COVID. I generally think, like, in my district, in my area, the schools do a pretty good job. My Carlton Airport schools, Huron Township schools, Taylor schools, I think they do a pretty good job. I've got some charter schools in my district. I do think that there were some restrictions coming on school choice that we haven't seen yet. They haven't made it to us. We heard rumors. Right now, we pretty much have good school choice. You can choose to go any local high school. You can move around if you'd like. One of the bills that was coming up was and I don't like this at all, but the teachers were going to be able to choose whether your school district would be a school of choice district or not. So they could say, we're not open for school choice, or we are. I don't know why anybody would say no, because everything's based on the student that you get, and the amount of money you get is based on how many students you can get. But that was just kind of a crazy thing that was introduced, and then they pulled it back. I was getting calls from superintendents about prevailing wage and about that school choice measure. So in an overall philosophical answer to your question, I would like to return all control to the local schools and get the state out of it completely. And other than what assistance they would need from us as far as if there's state assistance, if there's standardized testing assistance, things like that. I'm not a big fan of standardized testing, even though my kids took it at their schools. It kind of gives you a benchmark, but I think a lot of times if you just trust the schools to do what they do, they're going to know if they're teaching well, and the parents are going to know because they're going to say, I like my schools, I want to keep sending my kids to this school because they do a good job. I think the parents ultimately are going to weigh in on what they like, and I just think that's the best way to operate it. But if you're doing a good job for your community, for your parents, the kids are going to go to your school.
I agree, I think the teacher should be able to teach.
Mm-hmm.
And not do what, like you say, with the state coming down saying, you got to do this, you got to do this, you got to do this. There's more, reporting and all this other stuff than actually being a one-on-one with the students.
You know, I'll even kind of criticize myself here. I believe in cursive writing, right? But
Same here.
I'm a free market guy, and I'm a local control guy, and I'm not a state mandate guy. So Brenda Carter introduced a bill about cursive writing. I'm like, oh, I love cursive writing. It was going to be optional. I'm like, why are we telling the schools something that's optional? Why are we wasting our time doing this? Why don't we just say, you can do cursive writing? We don't need a law to say that. And so I voted against it. And people will say, well, why'd you vote against that cursive writing bill? I'm like, I just don't think we should be telling the schools this, unless we're giving them the money, like here's your cursive money, here's your cursive writing money. We got a program for you, but that's what's wrong with our system. We give mandates and we don't give enough money, or we don't give any money. And then, I'll give you another example. Is there anybody in here that's a clerk or involved in voting?
I can speak on behalf of our clerk.
Tell her to resign.
All the rules changing in the voting, it's putting a lot more on her department, and we don't have the money to incorporate all these changes and the 9 days voting period now.
It's a nightmare right now for county clerks, township clerks, city clerks. So proposal 2, and you'll follow this, I should mention this, I don't want to leave the room tonight without mentioning this. It's very likely that proposal 2 is going to go to the U.S. Supreme Court. And Arizona and North Carolina already have cases before the Supreme Court, and I believe one of the states there was already a brief that came out, or a partial ruling it's coming back around. And so what they basically are saying is that in the U.S. Constitution, it says that the legislatures control the time, manner, and place of elections, federal elections, right? But when you pass proposal 2, it applied to our state and federal. And so they're not going, the severability, without getting too deep in the weeds here, the U.S. Supreme Court's going to say, we don't know if the voters' intent was to still go back and have the state elections based on the 9 days of early voting and the absentee vote by mail and all that proposal 2 brought out, and the lack of ID and the same day registration, all the things that you know that are in proposal 2. So we feel like the U.S. Supreme Court's going to throw it out, and it's going to come back. And so our legislature is going to have to figure something out at that point. And you say, well, that could still get validated at the legislative level, but we'll have some control over that, and you'll have control over that because you'll be able to vote based on that, vote based for your legislature. So if proposal 2 goes away, I don't think we're going to be operating under those rules, but until that happens, it's going to take a while for the U.S. Supreme Court to get to that. We don't know when that will happen, but everything we're getting from our legal experts is that it is unconstitutional. A state referendum, the people of the state, and you cannot put it into a state constitution and take away that power out of the U.S. Constitution. That remains and is the supremacy clause is supreme over our state. So the legislature does have the say-so on elections. But proposal 2, unfortunately, the clerks, the time of the year, the Christmas time and all that, the amount of time 9 days of voting, they don't have people for 9 days. And so we didn't give them any money. So they're going to have to bring in their election workers for 9 straight days. That's going to be very expensive, and it's going to be a nightmare for city township clerks. I don't know how we're going to solve that one, but we'll see, what to be determined again. Yes, sir.
I've got one, concerning our roads. We have adopted the highest allowable weight rating according to the federal government at 80,000 pounds. Ohio's at 50,000 pounds. When you would go across that border, you should tell the difference. Is there any discussion in the legislature about reducing the gross vehicle weight on a semi?
That has not come up. I can tell you that. I have not heard of any bills introduced on that. I know that if it came from our side, it probably wouldn't make it out of committee because of the way that we're structured right now. I do think that we need to do something there, but there again, it's challenging because we're gonna add more trucks to the road. But I would be willing to look into that. Some reduction. I think Indiana is similar too. We have the lowest. It's just like we have the lowest tipping fees in the Midwest on garbage, on hazardous waste, toxic waste, residential waste, and so we have a really large percentage of trash that comes in from out of state. And so I say we're trashing Michigan because we're cheap, just like this injection well. It's extremely inexpensive to inject chemicals down into the ground. It's probably the cheapest way to get rid of them. And that's why we're getting them. And this one here, this Class 1 injection well, is one of the only ones in the 4-state area. Although Vickery, Ohio has one, and that's where they're taking all of the waste from the train derailment now. It's all going to Vickery. Texas told Ohio, we don't want your waste. And luckily, through a lot of legislative effort, contacting the EPA and contacting Eagle, we were able to tell them, please don't bring any more of that dioxin from that train derailment. We don't want it. It can go in, they can dispose of it in Ohio. There's no limit on how much they can take there. So it was 3 million gallons, I think, of liquid, and we took 300,000 on the initial go around. But they're bringing it all to Vickery, Ohio now, which is near Cleveland, and they're disposing of it there, which I'm glad for that. All right, thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
Excuse me, so stick around, have some appetizers, ask Aaron questions, ask Representative DeSena some questions. We're here to mingle and enjoy, but I just want to point out a new person in the room. Would you guys all agree Bubba's 33 has been a great partner to the city of Taylor? Well, Ashley, stand up. This is our new Bubba's 33 representative for Taylor. So now everybody, that's Ashley, so she will be taking care of us here in Taylor. So I just want to introduce Ashley from Bubba's 33. You're welcome. So guys, enjoy some appetizers, ask questions, mingle, and enjoy yourselves. And the next Taylor Rotary Business Alliance meeting will be July 27th. We are changing the date from the 20th to the 27th, but we will give you some more information who our guest speakers will be then. So have a good night and enjoy yourselves and mingle.